happens.
All right. Let's see what happens.
But allegedly,
I'll keep the on
yeah,
standby.
we'll see what's happening.
Okay, I just got a notification that Livestream is up.
Okay, so now if I go here, okay, aha, I think we're good. We're live, bro.
All right, cool.
Hi, Kyle. How are you, man?
I am good. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I'm good. It's been a while since we've done this.
It has been a while. Are we live right now?
Yeah, it's real. So
Oh, okay, cool.
yeah, there's a little bit of lag, but it's working, I think. So we're gonna go with it.
Okay. That's what
So
I'm talking about.
um, tell the lovely people, the tremendous people, what you've been up to lately, if you'd be so kind.
Yeah. No problem. Other than work in the family business, which is, always what it is. Tons of work. Um, been adding some stuff to my Patreon page. Got some different features on there now. I'm doing I'm writing a novel on the Patreon page, and it's kind of a follow along format. Like when you were a kid, you remember reading those books where it would like choose your own adventure,
Right?
and so you decide which way the character is going to go, and then you flip to a certain page. Well, I'm doing that, and I'm writing it live with the audience. And when the main character in the book has to make an important decision, everybody kind of votes on what they think he should do. So that's pretty cool. Been doing that. Just did a benefit last weekend with a food truck for a guy. He's a vet and got stage 4 brain cancer. I didn't really get into the details of his illness with him, but we were helping with a fundraiser for that, and that went pretty good. So other than that, man, just a same old daily grind.
So I think it's really cool the way that you're doing that book. I think it's really cool the way that you're helping that vet. But I think it's also really cool how you're doing that book, and I think that's brilliant. So your patrons actually get to determine the course of the story. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, it's really cool because I'm fleshing out the story. I started the premise, and I control the characters and of course the background and stuff like that. But when it gets to a pivotal part of the story where you would have to make a decision as a prepper, the people on my Patreon, they kind of weigh in, and I look at what the consensus is, and that's the way we go. So I don't know which way it's going either. So it's kind of a surprise for me, and I'm along for the ride also. I've just got to hit the keyboard and make sure everything makes sense and that it stays together. And so far, it's going really cool. I don't know if I might have unwittingly invented a new genre for the internet or what, but I am taking full credit for that in case anybody's asked.
That's awesome, man. Um, well, it's been a while. It's been a while since we've
Yeah.
talked and hung out. Um, I woke up this morning and, well, I didn't wake up this morning. I woke up in the middle of the night and we had a storm that was about the equivalent of a 4 or 5 hour live fire artillery exercise. So I got no sleep and that was great. And
Oh,
then light bulbs in my house started to explode and I was like, what's going on? So I turned the main breaker off and realized that there was half a pine tree laying on top of my power lines. So I started my day on short sleep running a chainsaw, cutting a tree off of live power lines. And then right before I came here, we had to put our baby calf down. So it's been a good day. It's been a good day on the homestead. It's been real.
Oh, what happened?
You know, she was
Oh,
she was
was that the calf you just got? The one that you?
yeah, yeah, and she was pulled. She had to be pulled when she was born, and her hip was never right, and so
Mm-hmm.
uh, she was in a lot of pain, and she wasn't getting any better, and she wasn't getting up and wasn't walking, and so it was just time rather than try and uh, hope that she was going to get better. She's not been, so we pulled the made the decision to flip the switch, and so now she's going to be compost. But whatever, man. So
Yeah. You know, that brings up a topic that I think about a lot, and you read about it from time to time. It's not been so trendy lately, but it was for a while, and that was everybody going to cage free this, free range that, cruelty, feeding tasty animals. They will try to vilify agriculture chance, and it's almost to the point where they want to elevate animals above people, but people that nurture, care for, and raise animals don't treat their animals cruelly. An unhealthy animal doesn't do you any good. And so I'm sorry to hear about your calf, but we want to eliminate suffering always, always.
yeah, yeah, we're getting questions in the chat. People are wanting to know why I didn't eat it, and the answer is because we'd given it a course of antibiotics, and I didn't want to wait another 3 weeks for the antibiotics to be out of its system. I didn't want it to suffer another 3 weeks, so um, we put it down instead. Otherwise, I would have butchered it, but I didn't think it was ethical to let it suffer for 3 more weeks so I could eat it. So we didn't. Um, but yeah, man. Um, my wife and I, we realized the other day, like everything we
Yeah, I
have
think
is,
you made the right call there.
oh, thanks, man. I think we're a little laggy. I'm sorry if we are. So, I'll tell you what, Ebola Coffee wants to know how the trade situation will affect food markets. You want to take that one?
Yeah, I've been posting a lot about that lately. This whole China thing, everything from Hong Kong to the trade war, their expansionist activities in places like South America and Africa. I find it incredibly interesting. Obviously, China is America's main, I guess you could say, adversary or opponent at this point on the world stage. As far as the trade war affecting food prices, now something very interesting happened with this latest round of tariffs that President Trump had announced. The Chinese retaliated by saying, "Well, we're not going to import any more American agricultural products." And I thought, okay, don't throw me into that briar patch.
Right.
Um, so if that was their response and that was his intention, then it was absolutely a brilliant move on his part, because with everything that's happened in the Midwest this year, with everything that's going on with the natural cyclical climate, I'm not a big climate change guy. Uh, Climates do change, but I don't think people are both big fans of Christians. So should that fruition, and I think starting to see literally signs on store shelves, "Hey, sorry, we're out of green beans right now," things like that. Um, so the trade war, as far as food prices, could actually benefit us greatly, because the farmers won't be allowed to sell their stuff to the Chinese. The Chinese ain't buying. So they'll have to keep it here and sell it on the domestic market, which could be a roundabout way to short circuit shortages here, because we'll have the food that would have been sent overseas will still be here. There's going to be a market for their products. Americans are going to need to eat. So I think it benefits the farmers in the long run, and it's also going to benefit people who like food.
That's awesome. I hadn't even thought about that. That's pretty wise. Hmm. I don't I was emailed by a guy earlier today who was asking my opinion on the economy, which is I'm not an economist. I'm not a financial expert. It's my experience that what is alleged to be the best economy in history doesn't feel that way to a lot of people. And I think when we look at debt load, as far as what, you know, this guy sent me an email basically saying, look, about 40% of the U.S. stock market is owned by China. If they pulled all of their money out in one day, it would be, catastrophic. And basically what my take is on that. And I'm still right now pretty well concerned about the 2020 elections, coupled with the timing of these food shortages that I think we could see, coupled with just the economic bull crap. It still gives me pause. I'm not fearful about it, but man, I'm certainly thinking hard about it. What do you think?
Right. As far as the economy goes, especially the way it's tied to China, there are several things going on in the economy, big things that I think would be easy for people to understand and they really need to keep an eye on. Number one is the natural business cycle. In a recovery period, businesses tend to start making money. And when they do, over that first couple of years of business doing well, they want to expand to make more money. Well, a lot of businesses, as a small business owner, myself as a small business owner, don't have a lot of capital on hand to do that. So let's say I wanted to buy another food truck because everybody loves my hamburgers, right?
Right.
Well, I would like to make more money, employ more people, do better for my family, serve the community. So I'm going to go down and get a small business. Politicians are scared to death of a recession because just like the quarterback of a football team, the guy gets credit when you score a touchdown. Everybody gets a case of the red ass if there's a fumble, even if he's not the guy that dropped the ball. He's the focal point. He gets the heat or the credit. So the president is looking at that. The Federal Reserve can cut basis points on the interest rate, but let's say they cut a quarter of a point when they do. I'm not sure what the dog's doing in there. My son's wrestling with it. Anyway, so we're at about 2% interest right now. They could cut a quarter of a percent each time they do a cut. That only leaves them with 8 bullets in the gun to stave off a recession. Now, Federal Reserve staving off a recession. A lot of these large banks, lending institutions, investment houses, and because of changes in the law during the Clinton and Bush administrations, they're all the same people now. Now, there were a lot of restrictions placed on these people after the 1929 crash so that the gambler isn't the same guy who owns the casino, but that has changed, and they're all very intertwined. These companies are borrowing really, really cheap money, and they're taking that money and they're buying their own shares back to make their companies look more solid, more financially stable. The guy on Main Street, your average guy walking down the street, he's not the one buying these shares and propping these companies up. They are buying their own shares back with cheap money. Now, I did a video earlier today about the economy bouncing on the trampoline. So what's happening is, and I think Wall Street's going along with it, if Trump can keep this trade war and all this talk of trade war up with China for probably about 6 more months, he understands that there should be a natural correction of the markets based on the natural business cycle. Everybody's trying to do everything they can to stave that off. They just want to keep the money rolling in. I get it. I understand that. But if the stock market, which isn't the economy, but it's more of a barometer, I mean, you can kind of take the pulse of the patient, but the pulse is in his whole body. But the stock market is more of a lagging indicator. It tells you where the economy was just now, but not exactly where it's going to go. So if he can keep the market propped up, or if they're all in on it, which I don't want to get conspiratorial, but if they can take slow, small doses of the poison and gradually step down over the next few months to avoid a big correction, just have some slight small corrections. And then, I don't know, deep into the election cycle, all of a sudden, Chinese people are calling and wanting to talk about trade, and it starts bumping up. Then the president can turn around and say, hey, you sure you want to kick me out now? Everything's going good. So they would take a short-term loss now and take a big gain later if that were to happen. But economics, politics, it's all important. And, we do focus on beans, bullets, and band-aids, but there's so much out there that matters that can affect us in large ways that people really have to pay attention.
What are your primary sources? We'll say maybe your top 3 sources for just gathering intel on your daily. Where do you go to get your news?
To get my news and information, there are a few creators on YouTube and other places on Patreon that I'll watch because I value their opinion. I like their analysis. They are, I guess, what you would call normal people. They're not mainstream media. But I also do watch mainstream media occasionally, and I'll read articles online at the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal and other places. But you have to be very discerning, and you have to understand what you're looking at. You really do have to read, watch, and listen between the lines. And I don't have a photographic memory, but I've got a really good memory. So I'll see something, and then I'll start connecting dots in reverse, and I'll think, okay, well, 2 months ago they said this, and now they're saying this. And you can kind of triangulate. You got 2 positions, and you're okay, the next one's going to be over here is what's going to happen. So just a variety of sources, really. I've always got my ears open. I listen to the radio when I'm in my truck or whatever. Just you got to keep your ear to the ground, man, because you never know. And you never get the whole story in any one source, but you can look at lots of places and kind of put it all together like a big news salad and just see what you got.
I feel like, if this whole thing was a jigsaw puzzle, you've got the corners figured out and most of the edges. Whereas a lot of us are still looking at the pieces going, I don't even know what the hell this is. I don't even know what the cover of the puzzle looks like, what I'm trying to make,
Right. I really appreciate that. But I think a lot of it is, I look at it through the lens of history. History is like sheet music, right? If you want to know what the next song is going to sound like, well, look through the sheet music and see what the last 10 songs sounded like. Just like sheet music, there's patterns. There's a rhythm. You got high notes, you got low notes, you got everything in between. And if you just look at one piece or one note on a piece of sheet music, that doesn't tell you anything. You don't know what song that's from. It could be from a symphony. It could be Iron Maiden. You don't know. But if you're able to look at the whole thing, and then you have a retrospective, you can look back and see, okay, this is everything that's gone on so far, and it all sounds similar. This is probably what it's going to sound like next time. So being a big history nerd does help a lot because, well, like Mark Twain said, it doesn't rhyme or it doesn't repeat, but it sure does rhyme a lot, right? And it does in a lot of ways.
I dig it. So let's say your little sister or whatever, somebody like that to you, brand new to preparedness, showed up at your doorstep and was like, I get it. I'm switched on now. What is the first thing I need to do right now? What's your take on that?
I have had, just like you, I have had a lot of thoughts about that. And if it's somebody I care about that's close to me like that, like a relative, a brother or sister or something like that, the first thing I'm going to tell them to do is to make sure they have security, physical, whatever it is they think they need to defend themselves. I would say that would probably be step one. And I'm gonna explain that a little bit. I'm gonna try to not be too long, hopefully, but food is good. You have to eat every day. Medical stuff is good. You might eat any bags, you might eat some sunscreen, whatever. None of that's going to matter if you have no way to use your resources. So I would think if a genie popped out of a bottle and he said, I'm taking away reps, and you start all over the beginning of all your stuff, what's the first thing you want to grab? I'm going to take 43 languages.
Lag is killing me. So
Yeah.
so security is what you're saying. Security to start with. Um, I think security is a good answer.
Yeah, because yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, you can die of exposure in 3 hours. You can die of starvation in 3 weeks. You can die of dehydration in 3 days. You can die without air in 3 minutes. But acute chronic lead poisoning can kill you a whole lot faster than that.
Yeah, I agree. So,
And so, the way I would, right?
what is the what is the best $100 or less you spent on a prep in the last year? Oh, the lag.
The best $100. You can buy a whole lot of. Yeah, I hope everybody's okay. We're having to use a different type of communication system this time. Let me see. $100. If you got $100 in your pocket and you have security locked down, then obviously food. You can buy a ton, not literally, but or maybe in some cases, you can buy a ton of food that you can store long term fairly easily for $100.
So, yeah, I'm on board with food. I think I don't have it on me, but I've been telling people for a long time, like especially people who are new to preparedness, get a they're like, "Hey man, what knife should I get?" I'm like, "Get a Mora knife. It's
Mm-hmm.
15 bucks. Get a $10 sharpening stone. Learn how to sharpen your knife. Get a $20 water filter and a canteen and a canteen cup and learn how to
Mm-hmm.
produce your own water. You know, you add in a Bic lighter and some matches and a ferro rod, you're $100 all in, and you've got a little bit of capability. Not like I don't want to go to Saskatchewan into the forest and try and live with that, but you've got something at your disposal. Um, Slag.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. So, all right, I'm looking at questions. Let's see.
yeah. No. Okay.
Um, let's see. I'm looking here. I'm looking here. I'm sorry the audio sucks, Julie Clark. My bad. um, let's see.
I'm sorry too. It's probably just my voice.
I don't know, man. Food saver, vacuum seal, cognitive dissonance, and normalcy bias. Yeah, I mean, what do you say to people who think that we're crazy for doing what we do? Got any input there?
Well, I wonder who is more delusional: the person who is prepared yet continues to live their normal life, knowing that things can change. Okay, or the person who's unprepared continues to live their normal life, thinking that nothing's ever going to change. I can tell you which person I'd rather be.
Hmm, that's a really good answer. Um, I've been getting the question a lot lately from people who are like, my cousin, uncle, aunt, cat, neighbor, whatever, um, they're a Christian and they say that they don't need to be prepared because God is going to take care of them. So how do I get them on board? And my answer
Oh
has,
my. Okay.
yeah,
Actually,
go ahead. I want to hear your take.
yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I want to hear your take.
All right. Okay, yeah, no problem. Actually, that is a very complicated yet very simple answer all at the same time. I probably have the same perspective on it you do. Look, anybody who's ever read the Bible, I mean, seriously sat down and read it. I did that, Bible in a year thing where it tells you how many chapters and verses to read every day and read the King James version in a year. I did that while I was in the military. It was very interesting. I love to read, and like I said, I got a pretty good memory, so I remember most of it. I'm not a chapter and verse guy. I can't throw out scripture. The more, it's all important, but there are a few that stand out to me. But there are many, many places in the Bible where the Father advises his people to get ready, or he sends a prophet to tell his people to get ready. Okay. So there are many examples you could point to saying, hey, being ready doesn't mean faith. Being ready doesn't mean you're not a good Christian. A lot of that centers around people believing that they'll be raptured away before things truly get really bad. Well, if they do, then that's good. If they don't, then they're ready. And being ready is, it's not a win or lose. It's a win-win. So if my neighbor gets raptured up, then and he's a prepper, he's not going to really mind if I borrow his stuff, and I'll have to catch him later, I guess.
Yeah, I've never thought about it quite like that, but I agree. He won't be around to mind so much. Um, yeah, the answer
No.
the answer that I've had lately has been, how do you know that the way that the Father's going to take care of you isn't by convicting me to put up for people I've never met before, maybe like you. And so if we look, even Old Testament, the story of Joseph, hey man, we got to put food back. Because Joseph put food back, he was able to take care of his own family as well as everybody else. And so, you know, the Father, we tend to think of the Father working in these miraculous ways, which he does, but we generally turn a blind eye to the human factor of people doing the Father's will for the kingdom, including other believers. So, it's like there's a whole bunch of Christians that are doctors. I'm not. But man, when I need a doctor, I don't have that skill set. I'm not doing those things, but the kingdom provides that, right? And so there's people like me that have these skills that if they're
Yeah.
needed, hey, they're here. So that's kind of been the bent that I've been on lately is, um, the Lord works in mysterious ways, including preppers. So,
Well, yeah, and another way you can look at it, is people um, of faith. They will often say, you're having this problem, you're having that problem. Put it in God's hands. Okay, I understand what they're saying. Is not to stress on it. Do the best you can. Try to put that out of your mind. Maybe it's beyond your actual physical control right now. I understand that part of it. But what do they think God's hands are? If we weren't created to carry out his will here and be his hands to build the things he wants done, then what are we if we are not God's hands? We are
amen.
all fingers on God's hand. So he he will provide you the opportunity. He will provide you the ability. He will provide you the tools. He's not going to do the work for you. That's how we get closer to him, is through the process of doing the work. He's going to set the table for you, but you're the one that's going to have to eat.
I love that, man. I love that. I like to tell people that the deal that I have with the Most High is I don't worry about the how. I just show up and I let him take care of the rest. And we've accomplished some really impressive things, not because I'm awesome, but because he's awesome, simply by creating opportunities for him to show up. And it's extremely powerful to see the Father show up, man, just, with everything that he's got. It's awesome. So, but I agree completely. I think that
Yep.
I think it's my job to be the hands and feet of my Messiah until he comes back again. Um, and what a great way to introduce people to him, you know? So, and if that's through putting food
Yep.
in buckets, so be it. So, um, let's see. Great answer.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Hey, what are some of your favorite books about prepping?
Favorite books about prepping.
Or in
There
general?
was an old book. Uh, yeah. There was an old book I'd read years ago by a guy that was, I want to say, like one of the grandfathers of the survivalist and prepper movement. It was called Surviving. I can't give the author's name right now. Um, oh, I know somebody out there is going to know it. That's a good book. Some of the older stuff, before all the technology, before night vision and GPS and all that stuff was widely available, those guys had really good advice. Let me see. I don't know if I should throw in a shameless plug for PJF's book, but I did buy that about 6 years ago. And once I found out he had a YouTube, I thought that was cool. He gives a lot of good advice in his book. Bible is the Bible is an awesome resource for a survivalist or prepper. There is a practical block of instruction in there for everything you could ever want to know. Absolutely.
Agreed. Have you ever read The 48 Laws of
Yep.
Power by Robert Greene?
It's really thick for. Yeah, I read the original one called The Prince by Machiavelli. It's also pretty.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, The Prince is a good one too. I mean, it is the original. I've always found that 48 Laws of Power, it's a good book, man, but if you adhere to all 48 laws, you are a total a-hole. But I like it from the standpoint of being able to anticipate people.
Very.
Yeah. Let's see.
Well, you're pretty familiar with my philosophy that people are the key to everything. Situation, unless you're prepping so you can have on an island or something, people are going to be the key. Understanding how to deal is paramount. Absolutely.
We got to get a new service, bro. We got to figure out the best way to do this. I'm really disappointed
I
in
know
Google. Alpha Jack would like to know what you think about red flag laws.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, that's a really good question. Number one, first and foremost, completely unconstitutional for the government to be their rightfully owned property without due process and being judged by a jury of their peers and being adjudicated as incapable of owning firearms. So, number one, I have a problem with. Number two, arm people that don't necessarily comport or conform and just do it one at a time. Now, could anybody disarm the American people in a week? Never. They don't have to. They can do it one at a time. And, you know, whether you're a Navy SEAL, Delta Force, Green Beret, whatever, you got 20 well-armed SWAT type people show up at your home at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you answer the door half asleep, and they throw you down on the porch, and somebody's got their knee in the back of your neck because you've been reported, you know, as a red flag risk, and they come in and take your stuff. That's hard to fight back against.
I agree. I think the whole thing is just a rape of justice. Um, you're putting the cart before the horse as far as due process is concerned, and that's a non-starter for me. And I'm a constitutional absolutist. Shall not be infringed means shall not be infringed. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
let's see. We True Vine Service would like to know your opinion on Texas going blue.
That is a tricky one. Without giving too much away, the online book I'm writing is called Battleground for a reason. I see things going sideways in a large way, and I see the way that Texas is demographically and politically divided. I see Texas being probably the worst front in a war that would be a second civil war or civil conflict here in the United States, because you've got a lot of people, almost 30 million people, a large area. I mean, you've been here. It's as big as countries in Europe. It's bigger than Germany. It's bigger than France. You have a large native born and raised Texas population, a large influx of people coming from failed states, whether they be California or south of the border, with different ideas. And there's already a lot of friction there. The native Texans, the birth rate here is still pretty high for as American citizens go. So the thing about the state going blue, I don't see that happening legitimately, but I could see people's political leanings, people that are, you know, whether they're being shepherded here or they come here, I could see them eventually outnumbering people with what you would call Texas or American values, which are, you know, one and the same. I could see them being outnumbered to the point where they can be outvoted, but it won't be done legally or ethically. So I think that would just cause more friction. It could happen, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as the left would like it to be.
My concern with Texas going blue is the same concern that I've had elsewhere, is the population centers. Being from upstate New York originally, I have seen what happens when all the money and power coalesces in the population centers. And it's one of the things with Texas that really concerns me, because there's a lot of really good people in Texas, but I'm a little concerned about the demographics
Mm-hmm.
change. And I've literally, I had land bought out from underneath us in upstate New York where our land was valued at $800 an acre. Ted Turner bought all the land around us. They reassessed everybody at $8,000 an acre, and those who didn't sell couldn't afford to live there anymore, so he bought our land too. And I mean, I've watched demographics change in places like upstate New York just based upon population density, and I think it's cyclical. Maybe you can talk to this. It seems that the higher the population density gets, the more likely that population is going to lean left and be more progressive. Whereas it seems to me that the lower the population density, typically speaking, people are more self reliant and more conservative in their ideology. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I absolutely do have some thoughts on this. I know you had you'd sent me a couple of texts about that um, episode, that video I did the other day. I really appreciate your report there. It is an interesting thing. One difference between a grasshopper and a locust. Scientifically, there is no difference.
Right.
A grasshopper is a grasshopper until the population density of the grasshoppers gets too high. And then they mutate into locusts. And then they swarm and they eat everything. Well, that doesn't make sense naturally. Why would that happen? Well, if there's plenty of food, they all just stay grasshoppers. When they start to run out of food, they compete. And then they mutate and they swarm and they eat everything. And only the fittest survive. It's nature's way of making sure the next generation of grasshoppers are healthy grasshoppers. Humans in large population centers where it gets crowded, they tend to do the same thing, but instead of becoming locusts, they get more progressively and socially minded. And the reason is because they are around people all the time. So the risk from people acting badly increases exponentially. So they know as an individual, they have very little control over the behavior of the people around them. So they look for larger outside power to maintain control for them so that they can feel safe, because we are the apex predator on the planet. Instinctively understand how dangerous each other are. When you're placed in large concentrations and there are no bars, okay, on the cages at the zoo, there has to be a strong central authority to help control that. That's why they get that way. People in the country don't bother each other. So I don't feel like I need as many laws to keep my neighbors in line, because we leave each other the hell alone.
Right.
But packed up like sardines, one guy being an a-hole can ruin everybody's day. So when you think about it that way, they're trying to control people's behavior, because when it's condensed, it makes more of an impact on more people. And they just understand they can't do it alone. So they have a higher authority or a more powerful authority do it for them. And government's always the answer: more rules, more laws. And that's the essence of the socialist. Control everything. If you throw enough laws at it, eventually you can control everything, right?
That's a really good answer. It's almost like you know what you're talking about or something. Very good answer.
Almost, it's almost like I've read about that stuff somewhere. I've
Yeah.
seen it in action.
Yeah.
And to that, I did grow up in Los Angeles, California, which has a high population density. I was born in Texas, grew up, moved back to Texas about 12 years ago. They had to let me back in because I have a birth certificate. But having seen and lived the difference, that's exactly what it is.
Let's see. Shout out to everybody who's chiming in about the prepper classroom. I'm glad you guys like that. And let's see. Thanks, Stephen. Shabba-dabba-da. Questions. This civil war needs to go hot if the communist left gains the White House. Man, I'd be careful what you wish for there as far as a hot civil war. And I think that's a population density equation thing as well, because where I'm at, there's going to be very little civil war unless it somehow finds its way to our doorstep. But again, me and my neighbors, we're not necessarily in lockstep. We agree on all the big things. I don't think in nowhere, Oklahoma, there's going to be much civil warring going on. So, we'll see. What do you think?
Yeah, where you, I would agree. I would agree with your assessment based on your geography. Absolutely. However, in your situation, I would expect refugees, because just south of you is the second most populated state in the country, with very passionate people on both sides of the political spectrum. And don't think that because the left doesn't want you to have guns, that a lot of them don't have their own. wanting or rooting for a civil war, I understand people's frustration with the current system. I get it. A lot of people are saying if we're going to have a reset, let's just get it over with. They're ready to let the chips fall where they may and rebuild where they can. However, there is going to be, in that situation, untold human suffering. And don't think that being an accelerationist, somebody who says, let's just get it over with, or does stuff to make it happen, like the guy in the Ohio shooting, the self-avowed leftist. Okay, if I do bad stuff with guns, that'll get people to take the guns away. And you and I talked about that the last time we were on together, how these people could be dangerous to our gun rights, even by accident. So being an accelerationist, I don't pray for it, don't wish for it, but man, prepare for it. You know, don't start a fight, but be ready to defend yourself.
Yeah, I've said before, and I'll say it again. I want to just I want to be completely wrong about all of this. I don't think I am, but I want to be
Yeah,
completely wrong. I want to be that guy that in 20 years people are like, oh, that idiot Bear. I can't believe I bought some food because Bear said so. Yep, I want to be that guy. Um, I want to be wrong, but I also don't think that I am. And so I don't want anything bad to ever happen, but I'm torn that not that I want it to happen, but if it was gonna happen and it's the type of thing where rounds are flying, I would rather them fly at me than my children. And so I'm in this weird space where I don't want anybody to accelerate anything. And I think it's reckless that people would even try to accelerate whatever's happening. But in the same breath, there's almost this tension of knowing that I get a little bit older and a little bit more busted up every day. And at some point, it's going to be my son in a plate carrier, not me. And I don't want that for him. And so it just kind of sucks all the way around. And I don't lose sleep over it. I have a very amazing quality of life, and I'm super blessed. But when I do think about things like that, it's like I have moments where I'm like, hey, I don't want this thing to go down, but if it could just hurry up and go down so that I can do something about it rather than my 12-year-old boy, that would be great. So I understand the sentiment of people thinking that, hey, this has got to just go ahead and happen already. But I want nothing to happen. I just want, unicorn farts and fairy tales is what I want, I guess. So, um,
I agree with that. 1,000%. I would rather have to be the one dealing with it than have my son deal with it. So that if troubles are going to come, let them come in my time, so that my children can have peace. Absolutely, that's been said before.
right.
The last time was when we faced off with the British Empire, for a lot of the same reasons. But it's by accident that people are feeling this sense of frustration. It's called tension strategy. I think it was JFK that said it, and he said it very well. Those who make peaceful change impossible make violent change inevitable. And so when you have people doing the censoring and the shadow banning and the blocking and everything else, if people have no outlet, that frustration is going to boil over. And I do believe that that's slowly it up. It's called tension strategy. Eventually, it'll snap. I just don't want to see that day. I just really don't.
I'm back. Sorry. I've been dying without this water.
That's all.
So I was listening. Um,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Random question. If the balloon went up right now, how long could you stay in your house without leaving, without having to leave?
Is that with or without external threats?
without external threats. Assuming that we'll just say hypothetically.
Oh, without external threat.
Yeah.
Okay. Right now, without having to leave for any reason, being hermetically sealed in, like in a submarine or a space station, at least 6 months, easily, and I could probably extend that a lot further. But I'm talking about not having to get any water, any food, nothing. Staying in this house without having to go outside. A good solid 6 months easily.
You know, see, food wise, I'm doing really good, but I have got to get my water collection up in Oklahoma ASAP. Because we have water storage inside the house, but not a lot, not as much as we need. We have lots of water sources, but I don't have like lots of
Right.
water in containers currently. So I've got to get that going. That's going to be a fall project for us. But because
Yeah, I've got quite a bit.
Go ahead.
No, I've quite I had a little math in my head when asked that question. But yeah, we could stay in here without having to physically go outside for about 6 months. I know it's crazy, but it is what it is.
I mean, that's a really good answer. Um, my food storage game is on point, but my water is not yet where it needs to be for storage. We have lots of production, we have lots of water capacity on the land, but I don't have a lot of it stored. Although, if it would ever just stop raining where I am, I mean, it has poured rain here nonstop. So, um, I've been waiting half a year to put a bridge across my creek, and I can't because it just keeps raining. So, yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Interesting comments. So, what else is new, man? What else you been up to? How's the food truck?
Food truck's going good. We're doing a little bit of change up on the menu, but it's going really good. We've been getting invited to a lot of different special events and stuff lately. We're starting to get the name really out there in the local area, and it's getting better, But the harder you work, the more business seems to pick up.
That's awesome, man. It's
Oh yeah,
interesting being a small business owner these days. Um, you know, I've always been
very.
entrepreneurial my whole life, but it's uh, it's interesting. Let's see. Brian wants to know if you have any tips about starting a YouTube channel geared towards truck drivers. What do you got for Brian?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. That's a good question. I was a owner operator for about 6 or 7 years. I mean, if you can drive to it, I've been on a YouTube channel back in those days, but I'm not sure YouTube was really a thing then. But man, when you stop somewhere interesting, make a post. I mean, if you're okay, a good example. I'm driving through Butte, Montana one time. It's July 3rd. Okay, I stopped my truck because it was time to take a sleep break. I wake up in the morning, I got an inch of snow on the hood. That'd have been a pretty cool video. I seen a moose chase a bear across the road one time. That was interesting. I went to the Devil's Tower in Wyoming. I did like this little out of the way trip because I wanted to see this thing. It's not as big as I thought it was, like in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. But I mean, you see so much interesting stuff. Now he could do like road rage videos. where he videos all the crazy drivers. He'd have thousands of hours of footage, and all he's got to do is comment on it or the crazy things he sees when people drive back. Yeah, I could see tons of possibilities for a truck driver YouTube channel. It'd be awesome.
I think that's all really good stuff. Brian, I would
It'd
say
be
document, don't create, which is basically what Kyle's saying here. It's like just film what you're already doing because you're already doing it. That's one of the biggest barriers
yeah.
to entry with content creators is like, well, what do I talk about? What do I do? You're already doing it, man. Just hop in your truck, flip the camera on, and be like, guys, this is going to suck. I got to make 600 miles in the next 10 hours, and here we go. And just talk about that. And, I'm carrying this load, and this load sucks because it
Yeah.
doesn't pay any money. And I'm going to be stuck on Highway 40, which I despise because of blah, blah, blah. And here we go, right? And people love that stuff, man. So document, don't create. Occasionally you can make a video that you take your time with and create some content, but vlogging, documenting what you're doing would be a great place to start to build your audience, and then you can kind of branch out from there. So that's what I think, man.
Uh, absolutely. Yep. It just the best way to keep it real is just to be real and people really respond to the realism. They can tell when somebody's full of crap.
Amen. Um, let's see. Hey, it's James McAdams. How do you handle local law enforcement if you get pulled over with all your gear, including your long gun, plate carrier, and ammunition? What do you say to that?
Hmm. Well, I guess that depends on where you live. During Hurricane Harvey, um, I was cruising around with some gear and a plate carrier and a rifle in the truck, and I ran into some guys with the National Guard, and one of them was pretty impressed with the rifle, and the other one thought the plate carrier was pretty. As far as law enforcement goes, it depends on the attitude. Where I live, probably wouldn't be a big deal if I said, "Hey, I'm going out to the ranch. I'm going to do some target practice, and I want to move and shoot, and I want to do it with this thing on, so that I could do a realistic baseline on my practice." That would probably suffice. If you're somewhere where there's a high propensity for bank robberies, maybe not so much. But it would really depend on where you are. But I will tell you this: honesty in any situation is always the best policy.
Yep, I agree completely.
Yep.
I
Because they know when you're lying. They're
yeah,
looking for you to be lying.
yeah, they do. I got pulled over maybe a month ago because my license plate light was out. Typical. Hey man, you know why I stopped you? And I said, no, I have no idea. I said, your license plate's really hard to read. And I said, I'm sorry about that. Um, I said, hey, what are you doing out tonight? I said, I live about 4 miles that way down this road. And he said, okay, not a problem. He said, I'll be right back. And I said, okay. He said, is there anything in the vehicle I need to know about? I said, yes, sir. There's 2 pistols and a carbine. He said, all right. Thank you for letting me know. He came back. He said, yeah, you just need to get that light bulb replaced. Thank you very much, sir. So now I go almost everywhere with a plate carrier and a carbine in my vehicle. But I run my carbine, obviously. The bolt is
Mm-hmm.
locked back. The safety is on. There's no round in the chamber, no magazine in it. And then my plate carrier is not visible. It's covered up so that there's no like, well, this guy's clearly a domestic terrorist. So I think it's about being honest for sure, but also not presenting as, some, fringe element when you get pulled over. So, and by the way, don't pull any of that sovereign citizen stuff because you're going to get drug out of your vehicle. Just a word to the wise. I have a friend who's a trooper, and he says you're coming out of this car one way or another. So either you can get out or I can take you out of it, but you're coming out of this car. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when I was a police officer, when I was a younger man, I was physically a larger man. I used to live in the gym. I was a huge gym rat. Did that for years. It is physically possible to remove somebody from the driver's seat and take them out of the window while their seatbelt is still in place. I've seen it done. I can't tell you how I know that, but I can say that it can be done. If the officer is determined enough, yes, that can happen. Much to the surprise of the angry driver. But yeah, don't present yourself as a threat, and you won't be taken as a threat. Very simple.
I agree. Um, let's see. What do you think about AI taking over the trucking industry? Hand in a bag asked that question.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. You cut out. What about taking over the trucking industry?
Artificial intelligence taking over the trucking industry. What are your thoughts?
Well, there are several companies that are working on self-driving trucks. Do I think it could be done? Yes, I do. If the technology advances, and it's not that far away, it would be very similar to ships on the high seas right now. You have a pilot who sails the ship across the Atlantic or whatever. When he gets close to the coast, a pilot who is familiar with that region will go out and board the ship with the crew, and he pilots it to the dock, and that's all he does day in and day out. I could see it being a hybrid situation where the truck goes from North Carolina to Barstow, California, and it drives itself in between. But somebody would meet the truck and drive it to its final destination to get loaded or unloaded or whatever. I could see something similar to that in the beginning, but I think eventually they will automate people out of the trucks.
What do you think about the Green New Deal?
I think the Green New Deal is death on a stick. And there are lots of reasons why I think that. Okay. Basically, to me, I think the main thrust of the Green New Deal is to move us back to the late 1800s. And I don't mean post Civil War 1800s. I mean the powers that be will have all the modern conveniences and technology. The rest of us will be reduced to serfs on the land. It's about sustainability, right? Sustainability is a word you hear a lot more these days. It used to be about the environment. It used to be about the climate. And now you hear a lot about sustainability, and that's maintaining resources in abundance for the selected few, and the rest of us will simply be providing that for them. Now, and if a few billion people got to die off, hey, but you know what? Those tiger moths aren't endangered anymore.
So I've got I've got a that'll post sometime in the near future about the Green New Deal, basically focusing on the concept of sustainability, like like you
Oh,
said.
there he is.
Um,
We have a bad connection.
yeah, yeah, we do. But basically, the concept that we're going to reduce carbon emissions for every ton of steel that goes into one of those wind turbines, they're putting out 10 tons of carbon to produce it. You know, for every ton of copper in the wiring, they're putting out 5.5 tons of carbon, 10.8 tons for aluminum smelting, concrete, rebar, trucking. You know, I've built these projects, these big utility scale projects. You're never going to come even close to offsetting the amount of carbon with those turbines that it takes to produce the project. And so the whole thing is just nonsense anyway. So
That you know, but most average people don't. And your average crackhead who steals the copper windings out of something to take to the scrapyard doesn't know either. Your conductive lines are always brand new copper. They're never recycled.
Mm-hmm. Well, brother, our connection is fairly terrible, but we're trying. So I think we might have to put a bow on it and try again for next time.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'm sure that the world's going to provide us no shortage of topics to talk about.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you for being here.
Hey,
And
I did have. Hey, I did have one question before you go for those stalwart, stubborn few that are still hanging on. What's the latest on getting Staff Sergeant Badass in on this?
you know, he and I have texted a little bit, and I will commit to text some more. And assuming we can get a platform that will work for doing this, then we will do it. So I will reach out to him again and see if we can make that happen.
Right.
I'm happy to try and make it happen. So I will redouble my efforts, sir.
All right, get the Chaos Consortium up and running.
You weren't supposed to say the name until the big announcement, man. Yeah, the Chaos Consortium.
Hey, maybe nobody heard it.
Yeah, that's probably what happened, that nobody heard it. So, all right, brother.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Hey, man, thank you for being here. I'm sorry the connection sucked, but we will try again in the near future.
Hey, it's Google's fault. They took down Hangouts. It's their fault.
It is all their fault. I'm happy to blame them. All right, bro. I'll talk with you soon.
Yep. And I do appreciate the opportunity, and I do appreciate everybody that stayed in there and stuck with us through this root canal.
Yeah, absolutely. Brother, you're awesome, man. Thank you for being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you for